She served the CEO by mistake. 5 minutes later, black SUVs surrounded the diner. Before we begin, if you enjoy stories about kindness meeting power, about ordinary people whose simple gestures change everything, please hit that like button and subscribe. In this vast ocean of content, it's how we make sure we don't lose each other in the algorithm. Your support means the world, and it helps us bring you more stories that remind us what truly matters in life. The morning arrived cold and cruel in Pine Ridge, a town so small it barely registered on most maps. Snow fell in quiet sheets, blanketing everything in white silence. Inside Rosie's Diner, the only establishment open for miles, fluorescent lights hummed their tired song above cracked vinyl booths and a counter that had seen better decades. Lina Santos moved through the empty space with practiced efficiency, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, circles under her eyes telling the story of too many double shifts. 28 years old, and she felt 40. Her apron was stained with yesterday's coffee, her shoes worn thin at the heels. But her smile never faltered when the door chimed. She had just finished pouring free coffee for Marcus, the delivery driver who always looked half-frozen, when she noticed old Mr. Chen had cut his finger on a rough booth edge. Without hesitation, she grabbed the first aid kit from behind the counter, bandaging him up while he protested it was nothing. On her way back, she dropped her tip money into the donation jar for the local shelter, $15.32. It was all she had left after paying for Nico's physical therapy that week. Her younger brother, 23 years old and brilliant, stuck in a wheelchair since the accident 3 years ago. The accident that took their mother. The accident that made their father disappear into silence and then into nothing, leaving only unpaid bills and broken promises behind. Lina didn't have time for bitterness. Bitterness didn't pay medical bills. The door chimed again, 7:30 in the morning, and the diner was still mostly empty. The man who entered looked like he'd walked out of a different world entirely. Charcoal suit, perfectly tailored. Italian shoes that probably cost more than Lina made in 6 months. His jaw was tight, his eyes scanning the space like he was calculating exit routes. He chose the corner booth, the one furthest from the windows, and sat with his back to the wall. Lina grabbed the coffee pot and her notepad, approaching with the same warmth she gave everyone. "Morning. Coffee to start?" He didn't look up. "Black, and I need privacy." She poured anyway, unfazed by the curtness. In her experience, rude people usually had the worst days. "You got it, though I should mention, privacy's pretty much guaranteed when you're the only customer." She pulled out her notepad. "What can I get you?" The executive breakfast, egg white omelet, no cheese, wheat toast dry, fruit on the side. Lina scribbled, nodded, and walked away. 15 minutes later, she returned with a plate of scrambled eggs, regular toast with butter, and hash browns. He stared at the plate, then at her. "This isn't what I ordered." "Oh." She blinked. "You sure?" "I could have sworn I was very specific." "Right, yeah. The executive thing. Sorry about that." She reached for the plate. "Give me 5 minutes. I'll fix it." But he waved her off, already picking up his fork. "It's fine. I don't have time." She left him to it, refilling Marcus's coffee and chatting with Mr. Chen about his grandson's upcoming wedding. She didn't notice the man in the corner booth glancing at her every few minutes, something unreadable crossing his face. 5 minutes passed. Then the world outside turned black. Lina looked up from wiping down the counter to see them. black SUVs, 4 of them, forming a perfect perimeter around the diner. Men in dark suits emerged, earpieces visible, moving with military precision. The lead vehicle's door opened, and a woman in a sharp blazer stepped out, speaking rapidly into her phone. Marcus stood up from his booth. "What in the—" The door burst open. 6 men entered, scanning the space, hands hovering near their jackets in a way that made Lina's stomach drop. They weren't reaching for phones. "Secure the perimeter," one of them said into his wrist. "Subject located." Lina's hands gripped the counter. Her mind raced through possibilities. A drug bust? Witness protection? Had she accidentally served someone dangerous? The man in the corner booth set down his fork. Calmly, deliberately. He wiped his mouth with a napkin, stood, and buttoned his suit jacket. When he finally looked at Lina, his expression was steel. "Julian West," he said simply, "CEO of West Global Logistics, and currently the target of a corporate assassination." The diner fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and Lina's thundering heartbeat. She stared at him, at the men surrounding him, at the world that had just invaded her small, ordinary morning. "So," she managed, her voice surprisingly steady, "how were the eggs?" Within 10 minutes, Rosie's diner had transformed into something Lina didn't recognize. Her workplace, her second home, now resembled a military command center. Laptops appeared on tables. Encrypted phones buzzed constantly. Maps were spread across the counter where she usually served pie. 2 men stood guard at the door, another 2 at the back exit. Marcus and Mr. Chen had been politely but firmly escorted out, leaving Lina alone with these strangers in suits who spoke in clipped, efficient sentences. And Julian West, who sat in the same corner booth, reviewing documents on a tablet like none of this was unusual. Lina stood behind the counter, arms crossed, watching her normal life get dismantled by efficiency and authority. One of the guards, a woman with sharp features and sharper eyes, approached her. "Ma'am, we need you to stay behind the counter. Don't use your phone. Don't approach any windows." "This is my workplace," Lina said, keeping her voice level. "I think I have a right to know what's happening." "Corporate espionage," Julian said without looking up. "Someone on my board leaked my location to a competitor. They want certain contracts I won't sign, the kind that involve offshore labor violations and environmental shortcuts." He finally met her eyes. "I refused. Now they want me convinced or removed." Lina processed this. "So you came to a diner in the middle of nowhere." "I was passing through, trying to stay off-grid until my legal team could lock down the source of the leak." His jaw tightened. "I wasn't expecting to be served the wrong breakfast." "Hey, I apologized for that. You gave me eggs I didn't order and seemed completely unbothered by my presence." For the first time, something almost like amusement flickered across his face. "Do you know who I am?" "Yeah, you just told me. Before that?" Lina shrugged. "You were just another guy in a suit having a bad day." The woman guard exchanged a glance with her colleague. Apparently, people didn't talk to Julian West like this. Julian stood, walking toward the counter. Up close, Lina could see the exhaustion in his eyes, hidden beneath layers of control and expensive cologne. "You don't seem fazed by any of this." "Should I be? You're drinking coffee in a diner, not holding it hostage." She refilled his cup without asking. "Besides, I've seen worse Tuesdays." "It's Wednesday." "Exactly." The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. The moment broke when the door chimed. Lina's heart jumped, but it was only Nico, wheeling himself through the entrance before the guards could stop him. His eyes widened at the scene. "Lina? What's going on? Are you okay?" She moved around the counter immediately, crouching beside his wheelchair. "I'm fine. Just some unexpected customers. How was therapy?" "Weird but fine. Dr. Martinez says my mobility's improving." Nico looked past her at the men in suits, at the laptops and maps. "This doesn't look like customers, Lina. This looks like a movie set." She touched his shoulder gently. "It's complicated, but I'm okay, I promise." "Did you eat?" "Not yet. Give me 2 minutes." She stood, moved back to the kitchen, and Isman Mam San started making Nico's favorite, grilled cheese with tomato soup. As she worked, she caught Julian watching them. Not with the cold calculation from before, but something different, softer maybe, or just curious. When she brought the food to Nico, her brother grinned up at her. "You're the best. You know that." Yeah. Finish your homework after you eat." "It's spring break, Lina." "Then read something educational." Nico laughed, the sound bright and uncomplicated in the tense space. Julian looked away, something uncomfortable crossing his face. One of the guards approached him. "Sir, we've identified the leak source, Gerald Hammond, your CFO. He's been feeding your schedule to Titan Industries for the last 3 weeks." Julian's expression went cold again. Stone. "Hammond, of course." He looked at his head of security. "Contain it. I want him out by end of day and charges filed by morning." As the team mobilized, Julian walked to the counter one more time. "How much for the breakfast?" $7.50. He pulled out a $100 bill. "Keep the change." "I don't need charity." "It's not charity. It's payment for tolerating this disruption." Lina took the bill reluctantly. "You planning on staying much longer?" "Only asking because I have other customers. Sometimes." "The storm's getting worse. We'll need to wait it out." He paused. "Is that a problem?" She glanced at Nico, at the men repositioning equipment, at her small diner turned fortress. "Guess not. But you're all making your own coffee." This time, Julian actually smiled. Night fell like a curtain, heavy and complete. The storm outside had escalated from persistent to biblical, wind howling against the diner's windows, snow piling against the glass in drifts that erased the parking lot. The black SUVs had become shapeless shadows in the white. Most of Julian's team had moved to the vehicles, running operations remotely while maintaining perimeter security. Inside, the diner had grown quiet. Nico had fallen asleep in a booth, his homework scattered around him. Lina had draped her jacket over his shoulders. Julian remained, still in his corner booth, though his tablet was dark now. He watched Lina move through her closing routine, wiping tables that didn't need wiping, restocking sugar packets that were already full. Nervous energy, he recognized. She was used to motion. "You don't have to stay," Lina said without looking at him. "Your people secured whatever they needed to secure, right? The roads are impassable, and I have nowhere urgent to be until morning." He stood, stretching slightly. Even his movements were controlled, measured. "Besides, I wanted to ask you something." She paused mid-wipe. "What?" "Earlier, when you processed my payment, you did something with the terminal, a workaround for the credit system." Lina's hand stilled on the table. "It's an old machine. Sometimes it glitches." "That wasn't a glitch. That was coding. Manual override through a command sequence. He stepped closer. "Where did you learn that?" "YouTube," she said flatly. "Try again." She met his eyes, something defensive flickering there. "Does it matter?" It worked, didn't it? Before he could press further, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, then turned his attention to the wall behind the counter. There, among faded photos of the diner's history and local celebrations, hung a newspaper clipping in a cheap frame. Julian walked over, leaning in to read it. "Local teen wins National Robotics Championship," the headline read. The photo showed a younger girl, maybe 17, holding a trophy and wearing a genuine, unguarded smile. The caption listed her name, Elena Ramirez, Pine Ridge High School. He looked at the girl in the photo, then at Lina. The resemblance was unmistakable. "Elena Ramirez," he said quietly. Lina's back stiffened. She didn't turn around. That was a long time ago. MIT full scholarship. One of 12 students nationwide selected for advanced robotics and AI development. He'd pulled up the article on his phone, reading, "Then you disappeared from the program. No graduation, no transfer, just gone." People change their minds about school. Not people like you. He stepped closer. "What happened?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Lina finally turned, her expression guarded but not closed. "My mother got sick. Cancer. Stage 4 by the time they found it. I came home to take care of her and Nico. She died 6 months later. Nico's accident happened during her funeral procession. A drunk driver. Her voice was steady, factual. Someone had to stay. Someone had to work. MIT doesn't wait for personal tragedy." Julian absorbed this silently. "You could have gone back." "After. With what money? Nico's medical bills wiped us out. My father left. The house, the insurance, everything went to keeping my brother alive and mobile." She crossed her arms. "So yeah, I serve coffee now instead of building robots. It's called life." He wanted to say something, but his phone buzzed again. A message from his head of security. Ran the photo. Elena Ramirez, MIT dropout. Disappeared 8 years ago. Also flagged in sealed investigation records. Sending file now. Julian opened the attachment. His expression shifted as he read. Something like recognition dawning in his eyes. 8 years ago, a major aerospace contractor had been caught using student research without permission, filing patents under corporate names, destroying careers before they began. MIT had settled quietly, sealing records, paying out confidentially. Several students had been affected. Elena Ramirez was one of them. She'd had a patent-worthy breakthrough in autonomous navigation systems. The company had stolen it. By the time the lawsuit settled, she'd already left to care for her dying mother. The money from the settlement had gone entirely to medical bills. Julian looked at Lina now, seeing her differently. Not just a waitress with a sharp tongue and kind hands, but someone who'd had brilliance stolen from her twice. Once by a corporation, once by circumstance. She stood there in her stained apron, exhausted and guarded, unaware that he now knew her whole story. "Get some rest," he said finally, his voice softer than before. "I'll keep watch." Lina hesitated, then nodded. She moved to the booth across from Nico, curling up on the worn vinyl seat, closing her eyes. Julian sat in the darkness, watching her sleep, watching her brother's gentle breathing. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, something had shifted. He sent a single message to his head of security. Pull everything on Lina Ramirez. All of it. I want to know what she built and who stole it. The reply came back quickly. Already on it, sir. Julian set his phone down and looked at the newspaper clipping on the wall one more time. The girl with the trophy. The smile that hadn't yet learned about loss. And he wondered what it would take to bring that smile back. Dawn broke pale and hesitant, the storm finally exhausted. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and the peculiar stillness that follows chaos. Lina had been awake since 5, mechanically going through her opening routine while Julian's security team packed up their equipment. She expected him to leave with them. Instead, he appeared at the counter at 7:30, showered and wearing a fresh suit that someone must have brought him. Coffee? She asked, her voice carefully neutral. Please, and your time if you can spare it. She poured, waiting. Julian pulled out his tablet, turning it toward her. We have a logistics problem. 3 warehouses, fluctuating delivery windows, weather delays, and a supply chain that's hemorrhaging efficiency. My team's been working on the algorithm for 6 weeks. We're missing something. Lina glanced at the screen, then at him. Why are you showing me this? Because I think you might see what we don't. I serve eggs, Mr. West, not algorithms. Lina Ramirez didn't serve eggs. His voice was quiet, not accusatory. She built systems that could think 3 moves ahead. Her hand tightened on the coffee pot. That person doesn't exist anymore. Humor me. 15 minutes. If you can't help, I'll leave and never bother you again. She should have said no. Should have sent him and his complicated world back through that door and into the life she'd never be part of. But curiosity was a traitor, and her mind had already started parsing the data on his screen. Fine, 15 minutes. She sat across from him, pulling the tablet closer. The problem unfolded in layers: transportation costs, fuel variables, seasonal demand fluctuations, driver schedules. His team had approached it linearly, trying to optimize each variable separately. They were solving the wrong problem. You're treating the warehouses as static points, Lina said, her fingers already moving across the screen, annotating. But they're not. They're nodes in a dynamic network. The answer isn't in optimizing routes. It's in redistributing inventory based on predictive demand clusters. Julian leaned forward. Explain. Her mind clicked into a gear it hadn't touched in 8 years, and the feeling was both painful and exhilarating. Your weather data shows storm patterns. Cross-reference that with historical sales data, and you can predict where demand spikes before it happens. Move inventory proactively, not reactively. The warehouses become fluid, less storage, more strategic staging points. She sketched a quick flowchart, her handwriting fast and precise. Here, build a machine learning model that factors in weather, local events, even social media trending. It'll tell you where to position stock 3 days before you need it there. You cut delivery times by 40% and reduce fuel costs by redistributing shorter distances. She looked up. Julian was staring at her. So was his entire team, who had stopped packing to watch her work. How long did you say you needed? One of them asked, a woman with silver hair and an MIT ring on her finger. 15 minutes, Julian said, never taking his eyes off Lina. She needed 15 minutes to solve what you couldn't in 6 weeks. The woman let out a low whistle. Sir, this is brilliant. This could revolutionize our entire distribution model. Lina pushed the tablet back across the table, suddenly uncomfortable with the attention. It's just basic predictive modeling. Basic? Julian's voice carried something like wonder. Lina, do you have any idea what you just did? Wasted 15 minutes on a world I don't belong to anymore. She stood. You have your answer. Now keep your word and leave. Work for me. The words hung in the air, simple and impossible. What? West Global has an innovation division, research and development. I want you to lead a team. Lina laughed, sharp and bitter. You're joking. I've never been more serious. He stood, matching her intensity. Your talent is wasted here. You could be changing entire industries. And you think after 8 years I can just walk back into that world? With what credentials? What references? A newspaper clipping and a GED? With me vouching for you. With your mind proving itself. Stop. Her voice cracked. Just stop. I know what this is. Rich man feels guilty, offers charity to make himself feel better. I've seen this play before. Mr. West, different actors, same script. This isn't charity. Yes, it is. The words burst out of her, 8 years of buried fury finally finding air. You think you're the first powerful person to notice me? To see potential and promise opportunity? I had a professor at MIT who said the same things. Brilliant work, he said. Revolutionary, he said. Let me help you patent this, he said. Julian's expression shifted, understanding dawning. He stole it, Lina continued, her voice shaking. Every line of code, every innovation. Filed it under his name, sold it to a defense contractor, and when I fought back, he buried me in legal threats until I couldn't afford to fight anymore. The settlement I got went to my mother's medical bills. And that professor? She met Julian's eyes. He's comfortable, successful, and I'm here. His name, Julian said quietly. What was his name? Why does it matter? Because I need to know who hurt you. Lina turned away, blinking back tears. Dr. Marcus Chen. And before you go playing hero, he's untouchable. He works for someone bigger than both of us now. Julian's phone was already out. Message typing. Within seconds, his head of security responded. Julian read the message, and his jaw tightened. Dr. Marcus Chen, current Chief Technology Officer at Titan Industries, Victor Crane's company. The man trying to destroy Julian was employing the man who destroyed Lina. Julian looked at her back, at the rigid set of her shoulders, at the girl in the newspaper clipping who'd smiled like the world held only possibilities. Lina, he said softly, what if I told you we could make him pay? She didn't turn around. I'd say revenge is expensive and I can't afford it. What if you didn't have to? Outside, the sun finally broke through the clouds, painting the snow-covered parking lot in shades of gold. But inside the diner, the shadows were just beginning to form. 3 days passed, and Julian West didn't leave Pine Ridge. His security team rotated shifts in the motel across town. His assistant fielded calls from New York, Hong Kong, London. Board members demanded his return. Shareholders grew nervous, but Julian remained, showing up at the diner every morning at 7:30, ordering coffee, and quietly working at his corner booth. Lina tried to ignore him, tried to maintain the wall she'd built between his world and hers. But he made it difficult. He tipped the other waitress generously when Lina refused his money. He fixed the diner's faulty ice machine without being asked, calling in a technician from his company. He engaged Mr. Chen in long conversations about his grandson's wedding, even offering recommendations for venues. And he talked to Nico. She'd find them together during her breaks. Nico showing Julian his sketches, Julian asking questions about technique and vision with genuine interest. Her brother's face would light up in ways she hadn't seen since before the accident. "He thinks I should apply to art schools," Nico told her one afternoon, his eyes bright with dangerous hope. "Real ones. Like Rhode Island School of Design or CalArts." Lina's heart clenched. "Nico, I know we can't afford it. I know." His voice dropped. "But just talking about it, just imagining it, it felt good, Lina. Is that wrong?" She touched his face gently. "It's not wrong to dream. But it's stupid to believe in them, right?" He smiled sadly. "That's what you taught yourself." The words struck deeper than he knew. That evening, Julian found her alone in the diner after closing. She was wiping down tables with more force than necessary. "You need to stop," she said without preamble. "Stop what?" "Filling my brother's head with impossible things. Art school, future, hope. He's going to crash so hard when reality hits." Julian set his coffee down. "Why does it have to be impossible?" "Because we're us, and that world is that world." She gestured between them. "You operate on ambition and capital. We operate on survival and mercy. Those are different languages. Maybe I'm trying to learn yours." "Why?" The question came out raw. "What do you want from us, really? A feel-good story? Redemption for your guilty conscience?" "I want to understand how you do it." "Do what?" "Stay decent in a world that tried to break you." He stood, moving closer. "I've built an empire on efficiency and control. I've mastered systems and markets. But watching you with your brother, with your customers, with complete strangers, you've mastered something I never could." "What? Poverty?" Her laugh was hollow. "Faith. In people. In kindness. Even after everything." His voice softened. "How?" She met his eyes, and for a moment her armor cracked. "Because the alternative is becoming like the people who hurt me, and I'd rather be broke than broken." The moment stretched between them, fragile and electric. Then Lina's phone shattered it, buzzing with a local news alert. Her blood went cold as she read the headline. "Tech CEO Julian West under investigation for embezzlement, hiding in small town." "No," she whispered. Julian's phone exploded with calls. He answered one, listened, his expression hardening to stone. Victor Crane leaked it to every major outlet. False documentation, fabricated trails. My legal team is scrambling, but the damage is done. The next morning, everything changed. Reporters arrived in Pine Ridge like locusts. Cameras and microphones transformed the quiet town into a circus. They swarmed the diner, shouting questions through the windows, blocking the entrance, turning Lina's sanctuary into a spectacle. Her regular customers stopped coming. The parking lot stayed empty except for news vans. By noon, Jerry from the food supply company called to cancel their contract. "I can't be associated with this, Lina. You understand. Just until it blows over." But it didn't blow over. It intensified. That afternoon, Lina found Julian in his booth, surrounded by lawyers on conference calls, fighting a war she couldn't see, but could feel crushing her world. "Get out," she said, her voice shaking. He looked up, ending his call immediately. "Lina, get out." Tears streamed down her face. "Your world burned mine down with a rumor. My customers are gone. My suppliers won't deliver. In 3 days, you've destroyed what took me 8 years to build. And what happens when they learn who I really am? When they dig up Elena Ramirez and connect her to you? When Victor Crane decides to finish what Dr. Chen started? Julian stood. I can fix this. Give me time. Time. She laughed bitterly. You can fix your life, Mr. West. You have lawyers and money and power, but me? I'm collateral damage. I always am. Then work with me. Let me help you rebuild by hiring me, by making me dependent on you. She wiped her tears roughly. You can't fix a ruined name by hiring it. You can only make it a trophy in your redemption story. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Tell me. Because all I see is another powerful man who thinks money solves everything. Julian's expression cracked, something desperate breaking through. It's me trying to right a wrong I didn't commit, but my world did. It's me seeing someone who should be changing the world serving coffee because monsters stole her future. It's me wanting, he stopped, composing himself. It's me trying to help. I don't want your help. Her voice broke. I want my life back. I want my brother safe. I want to be invisible again. She walked into the kitchen and locked the door, sliding down against it as sobs overtook her. Outside, Julian stood alone in the empty diner, surrounded by the ghosts of her shattered peace. And somewhere in New York, Victor Crane smiled at his computer screen, watching his plan unfold perfectly. The game had only just begun. The call came at 2 in the morning. Lina's phone vibrated against her nightstand, the number unfamiliar but local. Her heart knew before her mind did. Ms. Santos, this is Pine Ridge Memorial. Your brother's been admitted. You should come now. The hospital hallway smelled like antiseptic and fear. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, too bright and too cold. A doctor met her outside the emergency room, his expression carefully neutral. Nico's stable, concussion, bruised ribs, minor lacerations. He says he fell down the stairs at the community center. Fell? Lina's voice was hollow. That's what he said. But Ms. Santos... The doctor hesitated. The injuries aren't consistent with a fall. They're more consistent with... With what? With someone hurting him deliberately. The world tilted. Lina pushed past the doctor into Nico's room. Her brother lay in the hospital bed, one eye swollen shut, bandages around his ribs. His wheelchair sat in the corner, and beside it, his sketchbook. Lina. His voice was small, scared. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She took his hand, trying to keep hers from shaking. What happened? The truth. 2 men. They were waiting after my art class at the center. They said... His voice broke. They said to tell you to make the CEO go away. That this was just a warning. That next time would be worse. Rage and terror warred in Lina's chest. She reached for his sketchbook with trembling hands, flipping through pages of his beautiful drawings until she found it. A note, typed and unsigned, tucked between sketches of impossible futures. Tell the CEO to back off, or your brother's accident becomes permanent. She read it 3 times, each word searing into her brain. Her hands shook so hard, the paper rattled. The door opened. Julian stood there, still in yesterday's clothes, his hair disheveled, his eyes wild with worry. He must have been called by the hospital or his security team monitoring the situation. Get out, Lina whispered. Lina, I just heard. Get out! The scream tore from her throat, raw and primal. This is your fault. Your war, your enemies, your consequences. And my brother pays the price. Julian's face crumpled. I'm calling the police. Victor Crane won't get away with the police. She laughed hysterically. Against a billionaire? You think the law works the same for people like us? You think justice exists when power is involved? She advanced on him, the note crumpled in her fist. You brought this hell into our lives. You and your corporate games and your righteous crusade against corruption. Well, congratulations, Mr. West. You proved your point. The monsters fight dirty, and people like us bleed for it. Julian stepped back, and she saw it. Actual pain in his eyes. Not pity, not guilt. Real human pain. I was wrong, he said quietly. I thought I could keep you separate from my world. I thought my security, my resources, my control could protect you. His voice cracked. I was arrogant and stupid, and your brother suffered for it. Lina's fury drained into something colder. Exhaustion, defeat. Just go. Please. Take your world and go. And leave us to heal in peace. She turned away, moving back to Nico's bedside. She heard Julian's footsteps retreating, heard the door opening, then stopping. You were right, he said to her back. I can't fix a ruined name by hiring it. I can't protect you from my world while keeping you in it. And I can't make this better with money or power or good intentions. She didn't respond, didn't look at him. But I can stand beside you when you fight it yourself. She turned, eyes red and swollen. What? Julian walked back into the room, and for the first time since she'd met him, his control was completely gone. His voice shook. His hands trembled. He looked lost. I've spent my life trying to control everything. Every variable, every outcome, every person, in every room. And it made me powerful, but it also made me alone. He knelt on the cold hospital floor in his $1,000 suit, meeting her eyes at level. I can't protect you, but I can fight beside you, as equals, not savior and victim, partners. Lina stared at him, this man who commanded boardrooms and moved markets, kneeling before her in supplication and surrender. Victor Crane wants to bury both of us, Julian continued. He wants me discredited and you forgotten. Dr. Chen wants your brilliance erased from history. They think they can win because people like us don't fight back together, because we're supposed to exist in separate worlds. He stood slowly, extending his hand, not to pull her up, just to stand with her. So let's burn those worlds down and build something better. Lina looked at his hand, at her brother in the hospital bed, at the note threatening everything she loved, at 8 years of running and hiding and surviving instead of living, at a man who'd brought chaos into her life but was offering something she'd never had before, an equal. She took his hand, not because she needed saving, but because she was done being afraid. Then don't protect me, she said, her voice steel wrapped in velvet. Stand beside me, and let's make them pay. Outside the hospital window, dawn was breaking over Pine Ridge, but the real light was just beginning to ignite inside that room, where two people from different worlds decided to fight the same war, together. Lina hadn't stepped inside a law office in 8 years. The smell of leather and expensive carpet brought back memories she'd buried. sitting across from attorneys who spoke in rehearsed sympathy while explaining why fighting would cost more than surrendering. This time was different. Julian's legal team had assembled everything: sealed settlement documents from MIT, email chains between Dr. Marcus Chen and defense contractors, patent filings that bore her original code with his name attached. But that was only the beginning. What they found went deeper. Victor Crane and Dr. Chen have been doing this for 15 years, Julian's lead attorney explained, spreading documents across the conference table. Find brilliant students, steal their work, bury them in legal threats, then profit from their innovations. You weren't the first, Lina. You were number 17. 17 people, 17 futures stolen. Lina's hands shook as she read their names. Some she recognized from her time at MIT. Others were strangers, but their stories mirrored hers. Dropout, disappeared, working jobs far below their potential. We found them all, Julian said quietly, and they're willing to testify. The plan was audacious and terrifying. Julian would call an emergency board meeting under the pretense of addressing the embezzlement allegations. But instead of defending himself, he would expose Victor Crane's entire operation. The media would be there, the authorities would be waiting. And Lina would stand beside him, using her real name for the first time in 8 years. "Are you sure about this?" Julian asked her the night before. They sat in the diner after closing, the only sound the hum of the old refrigerator. "No," she admitted. "I'm terrified. But I'm more terrified of Nico growing up thinking silence is survival." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "Whatever happens tomorrow, you're not alone." She squeezed back. "Neither are you." The boardroom of West Global's Manhattan headquarters was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a table that could seat 30, walls lined with portraits of previous CEOs. Lina felt small in her borrowed suit, fighting the urge to run. But then she saw them, the other 16, sitting in the gallery, silent witnesses to their shared history. Victor Crane arrived with Dr. Chen at his side, confident and smug. He expected Julian to grovel, to negotiate, to capitulate. Instead, Julian stood at the head of the table and gestured to Lina. "Ladies and gentlemen, board members, press, I'd like to introduce you to Elena Ramirez, MIT dropout, robotics genius, and victim of systematic corporate theft." The room erupted in whispers. Cameras focused on Lina as she stepped forward, her heart hammering so hard she could barely hear her own voice. 8 years ago, I created an autonomous navigation system that could revolutionize transportation. My professor, Dr. Marcus Chen, stole it. He sold it to a defense contractor and destroyed my career when I fought back. She met Victor's eyes across the room. That contractor was owned by Titan Industries. By Victor Crane. Victor stood, his face flushing red. "This is absurd. You have no proof." "We have 17 victims," Julian interrupted smoothly. 17 students whose work you stole. 17 lives you ruined for profit, including sealed settlements, forged documents, and he nodded to his attorney, who pressed play on a recording. Victor's voice filled the room, cold and threatening. "Tell the CEO to back off, or your brother's accident becomes permanent." The words hung in the air like poison. "That's my brother he's threatening," Lina said, her voice stronger now. "A 23-year-old kid in a wheelchair, Because I dared to stand beside someone who wouldn't be bought. The board members shifted uncomfortably. One woman in the back row stood. "Mr. Crane, is this true?" Victor's composure cracked. "This is a setup. West is trying to discredit me because I exposed his—" "The embezzlement charges were fabricated," Julian said calmly, "using stolen financial templates that Dr. Chen provided. We have the original files, timestamps, everything." Two police officers entered from the side door. The lead detective approached Victor. "Victor Crane, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit assault, corporate espionage, and fraud." As handcuffs clicked around Victor's wrists, Dr. Chen bolted for the exit. He didn't make it 3 steps before security blocked his path. The room exploded, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions, board members demanding explanations. But through the chaos, Lina heard something unexpected. Applause. The woman who'd stood earlier was clapping. Then another board member joined. Then another. Until the entire gallery of 17 victims rose to their feet, applauding not just Lina's courage, but their collective vindication. Julian found Lina's hand and squeezed it gently. She'd spent 8 years hiding. Today, she'd reclaimed her name, and it felt like breathing for the first time. 6 weeks later, Pine Ridge looked like a postcard. Snow fell in gentle swirls, coating the town in pristine white. The diner's new neon sign, Rosie's, restored to its original 1955 glory, cast a warm pink glow across the parking lot. Inside, business was booming. The media attention had brought curious visitors from 3 states over. But the regulars had returned too, reassured that Lina was still Lina, no matter what name she used. She'd kept the diner. Julian had offered to buy it, to expand it, to turn it into something bigger. But she'd refused everything except help with repairs and a new ice machine that actually worked. "This place saved me," she'd told him. "I'm not changing it, I'm just making it better." Nico was thriving. His acceptance letter to Rhode Island School of Design sat framed above the cash register. Full scholarship, thanks to a portfolio that Julian had helped him compile and submit. Her brother would leave for Providence in the fall, and though Lina would miss him desperately, she'd never been more proud. She was wiping down tables when the door chimed. She looked up, expecting a customer. It was Julian. He'd been in New York for the past 3 weeks, cleaning up the aftermath of Victor's arrest, restructuring his company, testifying in court. They'd talked every night on the phone, conversations that stretched past midnight, but she hadn't seen him in person. He looked different, softer somehow, less armored. "Hey," she said, setting down her rag. "Thought you weren't coming back until next month." Couldn't wait that long. He walked to the counter, but didn't sit. "Can you come outside for a minute?" "Julian, it's snowing." "I know. Please." Curious, she grabbed her coat and followed him out. The parking lot was empty except for his car and the falling snow. The diner's neon sign hummed softly above them, painting everything in shades of pink and gold. Julian turned to face her, and she saw his hands trembling. "I've given thousands of presentations," he said, "negotiated billion-dollar deals, addressed shareholders and world leaders. But right now, I can't remember how words work." Lina smiled. "Try anyway." He took a breath, then did something that made her heart stop. He knelt in the snow. "Julian, wait, let me say this." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Not a ring box, an envelope. "I've never written a personal letter in my life. Everything's been emails, contracts, formal correspondence. But you taught me that some things deserve more than efficiency. He handed her the envelope with shaking hands. Read it, please. Lina opened it carefully, her fingers numb from more than just cold. Inside was a letter, handwritten in Julian's precise script. Dearest Lina, I came to your diner looking for safety. I found something far more valuable, someone who reminded me what it means to be human. You showed me that strength isn't control, that power isn't dominance, that the most revolutionary thing a person can do is remain kind when the world demands cruelty. You saved me when I didn't know I needed saving. You stood beside me when you had every reason to run. You fought battles that weren't yours, because they became ours. I don't have flowery words or poetic metaphors. I have only truth. My life before you was successful and empty. My life with you is messy and full and real. I don't want to go back to empty. So I'm asking, not as a CEO, not as someone trying to fix or save or control, but as a man who found home in a small diner with a woman who serves terrible eggs and brilliant hope in equal measure. Will you be my home? Will you let me be yours? All my love, Julian. Tears streamed down Lina's face as she read the last line. She looked at him, still kneeling in the snow, looking vulnerable and terrified and completely genuine. You're right about one thing, she said, her voice breaking. You're terrible at flowery words. His face fell slightly. But you're perfect at truth. She pulled him to his feet, the letter pressed between them. Yes, yes, I'll be your home. He kissed her then, soft and desperate, while snow fell around them like blessing. The diner's neon sign flickered above, painting their future in shades of hope. And somewhere inside, Nico watched from the window, sketching the scene with tears in his eyes and joy in his heart. 3 months later, the diner's photo wall had changed. The old newspaper clipping still hung there. Elena Ramirez, teen genius, holding her robotics trophy. But beside it now was a new frame, Julian's letter, carefully preserved under glass. And next to that, a wedding photo, Lina in a simple white dress, Julian in a gray suit, both of them laughing in front of the diner's neon sign. They'd married quietly, just family and friends. Nico had been Julian's best man. The ceremony took place in the diner at sunset, officiated by Mr. Chen, who cried through the entire thing. Lina still worked the morning shift. Julian had moved his base of operations to Pine Ridge, running West Global remotely and visiting New York only when necessary. He'd also started a foundation, the Elena Ramirez Scholarship, for students whose innovations had been stolen or suppressed. 17 recipients so far. More applications came daily. The diner had become something unexpected, a landmark, not because of the story, but because of what it represented. Visitors came from everywhere, not just for coffee, but for hope. They'd pin their own letters to a new board Lina had installed, letters of dreams, second chances, and courage. The photo wall was a testament to transformation, from teen genius to disappeared student, to waitress, to truth teller, to partner, to wife. Every version of herself, honored and integrated. One morning, as Lina arranged fresh flowers beneath the frames, Julian came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. "That I used to believe my story was about loss, about what was taken from me." She turned in his arms. "But maybe it was really about what I had to lose before I could find what mattered." "And what matters?" This, us, truth, home. She kissed him gently. Love that doesn't need saving, just witnessing. He smiled against her lips. For someone who said she wasn't poetic, that's pretty good. I learned from a CEO who can't write flowery words, but somehow wrote the most beautiful letter I've ever read. Outside, snow began to fall again. Inside the diner, warmth and coffee and conversation filled the spaces between the tables. And on the wall, among the photos and letters and memories, hung the story of two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their separate worlds and built something better together. Because sometimes the mistake that ruins your life, a wrong order, a chance encounter, a door that opens in a storm, is really the first line in the story you were always meant to write. Thank you for listening to this journey of truth, courage, and unexpected love. In a world that often tells us to hide our scars and forget our pain, remember this: your broken pieces aren't failures. They're the cracks that let the light in. They're the foundation for something stronger. Lina's story reminds us that kindness isn't weakness, that standing up costs everything, but silence costs more, that love doesn't rescue, it witnesses, stands beside and says, "We'll face this together." If this letter moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear that second chances exist, that justice, though delayed, can still arrive. That home isn't a place. It's the people who see all of you and choose to stay. Thank you for listening to this letter of hope. May you find your own diner, your own moment of truth, your own person who kneels in the snow and offers not rescue, but partnership. Until our next story, remember, you are never just one thing. You are every version of yourself, learning to stand together.